This week on The Winning Leap, we tackle the issue of economic crime in India and how we can gear up to fight this fast-growing offence. Now, if we want to find sustainable solutions, we need to educate ourselves on the problem. So let's take a look at the situation as it stands today. In today's world of connectivity, nobody is immune to economic crime. A 2014 survey shows that more than 1 in 3 organizations around the world are impacted by economic crime. From financial fraud, IP infringement and corruption to cybercrime, economic crime continues to be a major concern for organizations of all sizes, across all regions and in virtually every sector.
Typically, what we call as black money, and which is a huge parallel economy, would comprise of two different sets of incomes which have not been disclosed. So you could have income from a legitimate source, but which has not been disclosed, either at the time of its generation or when you get possession of that income. That's one. The second kind would be income which is from illegitimate activities, which could be racketeering, drugs, syndicates that are run, where you blackmail people, or it could be just terrorism, counterfeiting.
From the infrastructure and construction sector to aviation, oil and gas, real estate and telecom to retail and consumer markets, most sectors in India are particularly prone to threats of bribery and corruption.
If you really look at it from a point of view of regulatory environment, the regulatory environment has created its own challenges for the companies in India. Rightly so, I am all for it. So whether it is a company's bill, it has shifted the onus of accountability to a great extent on the independent directors as well as on the auditors. If you also look at it in terms of the companies themselves, as they operate in a globalized environment, they are obliged to adhere to the global ways of doing business, i.e. a much higher level of transparency, adherence to global anti-corruption laws like the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act or the UK Bribery Act.
The shift in wealth from developed economies in the West to high-growth emerging economies in the South and the East is being seen as a significant factor leading to corruption across the world. I'm here at AZB & Partners with Zia Modi, who's an expert on security law and who's going to explain the problem as it stands today. Zia, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So let's start with the basic question. Now, it's fairly pertinent news that black money is a large problem in India. We hear about it all the time. The government is taking steps to kind of fix this issue as well. Can you explain to us in a nutshell the problem as it stands today?
Black money is money that is not subject to tax and not subject to scrutiny. So the first thing is what has been more in the news, which is the foreign black money problem. Which stems from the government's perception that there is a large amount of money which has fled from India over decades and which needs to come back home in one form or the other. So that's the foreign money. And of course that's more topical because it has always received more headline news. I personally think that the larger problem is back home, domestic unaccounted money. Which seems to continue to escape the tax net. And I think that the larger struggle, if you like, for the government is going to be how to really get that catharsis going.
Can you tell us a little bit about the changes that are taking place on a legislative level to combat this problem in India?
So first you have obviously the fact that there's an act out there called the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, which has severe consequences. And Hawala money, if you like, would be caught in that. The Foreign Assets Act now is of course designed to make sure that if you now, as a resident, misdeclare your income tax return, do not declare your foreign assets, then as the Finance Minister and Mr. Sinha have been saying, there's going to be hell to pay. So there is a fear factor which is creeping into the system, which is a good thing. There has to be a catharsis at some stage. If we have to cross the line to a developed country, surely this element has to substantially decrease.
As your previous comments, that the real issue is tackling the problem of black money in India, not so much so internationally. Can you talk to us a little bit about this and what are your views on this?
You see, the reason why it is more difficult, I think, just logistically, is because, as I was saying, it's difficult to move money in bank accounts abroad now. Whereas here it is still just physical. You've got your regular angarya, you've got other forms of movement, and so when you're in the same territorial space, the suitcases move around more quickly, if you like. And so I think the entrapment ability of the government, it's much more difficult for them. So unless they've got a tip-off or they've caught you red-handed, or it's hard for them.
All right, let's talk a little bit about some statistics. Now, as per the Corruption Perception Index of 2014, India ranks 85th out of 174 countries with a score of 38. And currently, India is ranked 142nd out of 189 countries when it comes to ease of doing business. So can you tell us what are some of the factors that are contributing to these low rankings?
Well, I think that what is contributing to the low rankings in the corruption index is the corruption. So it's obvious that it is systemic. I personally believe that it is far more systemic at the lower levels. Why it feeds in to the ease of doing business level is because obviously if at every corner there is a perception that you will have to dirty yourself and things just don't move, then obviously the perception of ease of doing business is so sorry, there is no ease of doing business.
And finally, in your opinion, are the legal consequences for perpetrators of economic crimes, are they proportionate or maybe a bit too lenient? And are there any changes in the checks and balances in the legal system that are to be made?
Theoretically, there's prosecution, there's a 100% penalty, there is hell to pay under the Income Tax Act. If you've got foreign accounts abroad, you've got FEMA and the Enforcement Directorate who can crawl all over you in addition to the PMLA. Is the enforcement scary enough for people to say, I don't need this? My own view is that more people than before are actually saying, I don't need this brain damage, which is very good. So I think more naming and shaming, more of a practical approach if people come forward. I think that strong enforcement mechanisms which by way of conversation make others in the ecosystem say, oh my God, this happened to him or her, I don't want it happening to me. So it's not an overnight process.
Well, thank you, Zia, so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
It's time for a short break, but don't go anywhere because when we come back, we explore winning leap solutions to the problem of economic crime. Stay tuned.